There's this new fan. He's 5 years old. He paints his face. He wears a headdress, and a Deadspin writer calls him a racist who somehow offended two groups, blacks and Native Americans. Turns out the kid is Native American himself. So what is it with the left and young white conservative males?
Well, I talked about this earlier with John, and pretty much what I said is they're coming after young children, they're attacking them, and they're just looking to smear anybody and anyone they can. If you look at my case, they called me a white supremacist and a racist with absolutely zero evidence or facts to back that up. You look at this young kid, he has his entire life ahead of him, and they're ruining it. They're coming after him. He's going to have to change his name if he wants a job in the future, because I guarantee it's only going downhill from here.
So, let me ask you this. You did an interview with Piers Morgan. I know Piers Morgan. I know. He hates guns. He's an anti-Second Amendment guy. But I can't. Did he give you a fair interview?
He asked me some very inappropriate questions that 3 times actually he asked me the question, and I answered it, but it was just completely inappropriate.
What question?
He asked me, how does it feel to kill somebody? And I was just very disturbed and disgusted with that comment. That's not a question you ask somebody, especially with the amount of trauma that I've been through. And I answered it honestly. I said, I struggle every day. I have PTSD, and I have to live with it and deal with it. I have to deal with the trauma of having to take another life. And he didn't like my answer. And
you had to, though.
Absolutely.
You had to save your own. You had to, and I don't think you put Piers Morgan in your shoes, or a loved one of Piers Morgan in your shoes, or that 14-year-old kid in that North Carolina high school. I bet they do the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. I bet anybody would have done the same thing in my situation. But apparently my answer wasn't good enough for him, because he asked me 3 times until I finally said, this is an inappropriate question. Answered it again, asked me a 3rd time, and then I said, like I said before, answered it, and he moved on.
Yeah. Okay, the book, Acquitted, comes out, ships very soon. Tell us about Acquitted. By the way, great name for the book. Go ahead.
Well, Acquitted is available for purchase at Rittenhouse.com. You can pre-order a copy now. The book is pretty much about my childhood growing up, the struggles I faced, and just a little bit of an insight of who I am in an attempt to change the false media narrative that's been put out against me. I've been called a white supremacist, a racist, a kid who's had everything handed to him, and none of those narratives are true. The truth is, I was an underprivileged kid who grew up homeless, was on subsidized government housing, and had a drug addict dad and a mom who worked 80-hour weeks. It wasn't easy growing up.
You were going to go to college at one point. Are you going to school? Did you go to school? What's Kyle Rittenhouse? And is it in the book?
Right now, I'm not in school. There's a little bit of a setback on that end. I'm working a 9-to-5 job. And maybe in the future, once I get over these civil lawsuits and get my lawyers paid, I'll end up going to school.
They're still suing you?
They're still suing me in the Eastern District of Wisconsin.
Even though you've been acquitted criminally?
Even though I've been acquitted, they're still coming after me. And what's ironic...
It just strikes me, that's what they do on the left. If they can't get you criminally, or you've won criminally, they're going to do it civilly so that they can bleed you dry of any funds you may have.
Yeah, absolutely. That's their whole goal. They're coming after me in the Eastern District of Wisconsin, and which is ironic, is Mr. Grosskreutz, the guy who pointed a gun at my head and chased me down, is in his complaint that he submitted to the courts. He says that there's no mention of a gun in that complaint at all. It doesn't mention that he...
criminal history, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe he has a criminal history.
And you didn't?
No, I did not have a criminal history.
I got to go. Really good having you. You're inspiration to so many people, especially the Second Amendment advocates, protectors, defenders of the Second Amendment. Thank you for what you're doing. Piers Morgan, where's my camera? Piers Morgan, you've been invited on the show. Man up, my friend. Kyle did. Man up. Let's go. Let's have a conversation about the Second Amendment. You got it? You got the stones? Let's find out. Kyle, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Eric.
And good luck with the book. Acquitted, folks. It's called Acquitted. Great Christmas present.